Hello, welcome back. I hope you're doing very well. Quite recently, you've had a few comments and questions from people both on my videos and on Facebook as well, who want to start making videos of them performing on the Force or making tutorials, that kind of thing. So I thought I'd make a little video just giving some tips of things that I've learned since setting up this channel. I'm not for 1 minute saying my videos are particularly good or anything like that, but I have kind of learnt from mistakes and I've bought things I didn't need to buy and stuff like that. So I thought I'd just see if I could give some tips that would streamline the process for someone who's just starting out of making videos. So this is what this is. So if you're anything like me, when you start thinking about making videos, your mind is going to go straight to the camera and you're going to go down a rabbit hole of worrying about, should it be 4K? Should it be 1080p? Does it need to be 60 frames per second? All of this technical stuff. And because we're musicians, we have a permanent state of gas, which is going to make you want to buy things. But the truth is, the camera isn't particularly important. Things like lighting and camera positioning are much more important. We'll get to that in a second. If you've got even a sort of fairly modern smartphone, that's all you need to make videos, really. They're perfectly capable of shooting nice looking 1080p, which is basically HD videos. A note on that, I did a bit of an experiment last year where I filmed 4 videos of the same sort, and I filmed 2 of them at 1080p and 2 of them at 4K. There were no differences between the engagement. More people didn't click on the 4K ones than the 1080p or the HD ones. I don't think anyone cares about that, especially as most of us are watching these things on our phones. So for the way it looks, the way your video is going to turn out, the camera is not hugely important. It's more about ease of use. So if one of the big questions when you're making videos is obviously when the video is viewed, you want good quality audio and you want the audio and the video to be in sync with each other. And there's basically 2 directions you can go to achieve that. The first is to record the audio straight into your camera so it is naturally synced with the video, which has some benefits to it. That makes life very easy. The other option is to record the video on the camera and the audio externally somewhere and then to combine the 2. So we're going to have a look at those options in a minute. But if you are a smartphone user, my experiences with iPhones, I have to confess I'm not super au fait with Android. But if you are just starting out and you've got a phone that can make, it can take HD videos, 1080p videos, and you've decided that you want to go down the route of capturing your audio and video at the same time, there are a couple of things you're going to need. So if you're an iPhone user, you're going to need one of these, which is a camera connection kit. I'm sure there is an Android equivalent of that. I just don't know what it's called. And then I started out using this. Hopefully the camera will focus on that. It is a Behringer, what's it called? A U-Control UCA202. It's basically a self-contained, it's got a cable built into it, a self-contained class-compliant audio interface. And it's good for filming iPhone videos or phone videos for a couple of reasons. The first, it's class compliant, which means it will work with iOS. The second is that it has an input, RCA input, so you can basically plug the output of your Force or your MPC or your Maschine Plus or your mixer straight into it. And it has a headphone output as well, which makes it completely self-contained. So you basically connect this to your phone, you plug the music into one thing and your headphones into this, and you're good to go. You can just press record and it does everything. So if you're going to use a phone and you're going to capture your audio and video at the same time, these are the things you're going to need. Some sort of dongle which allows USB audio to pass into your phone, and then something which basically acts as an audio interface. You don't need to, this I think is about 25 quid. These are a fortune because Apple are, well, they're Apple. But I'm sure there might be cheaper options. But basically, if you've got a half decent smartphone or half modern smartphone, this collection of things here is all you need to get started, aside from camera mounts and lights, which we'll get to in a second. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, basically, I think I've published 180 videos. The first 40 or 50 of those were captured with exactly that kit I've just showed you and an iPhone 11. And then after 6 months or so, my channel hit the criteria where it could be monetized, which means I get a little bit of money for the adverts. And at that point, I decided that I would actually buy myself a camera. And it wasn't anything to do with the quality, the filmed quality of the videos. It was purely for quality of life or ease of use. And I'll explain why that is now. It's actually easiest if I show you the camera. Obviously, I'm filming with a different camera at the moment because I want to show you my regular one. So I did a lot of research, and this is the camera I plumped on, and it's a Sony ZV-1 or ZV-1 if you're American. And I chose it for 3 reasons over continuing to use my iPhone, and they are quite specific to the kind of videos I make. If you look at my channel, 90% of them are top down, where the camera is mounted above the Akai Force or the Maschine Plus, whatever it is I'm filming. And that comes with a set of challenges, which we're going to look at in a second. But the reason I picked this particular camera was for 3 reasons. The first is it is so small and light, it's actually not much heavier than a phone, which is of benefit if you are shooting overhead, because when you shoot overhead, you're going to use some sort of boom arm, and it means you can have this suspended on one end of the boom without having to have like a half-ton counterweight on the other end. So the dimensions and the weight of this make it very good for those top-down sorts of things. Again, on the top-down front, another reason I picked this is because it's got a flip-out screen. So if you can imagine this mounted up high, so it's looking down, if the screen is on the back, you can't see. It makes framing the video very difficult. Whereas this flip-out screen means you can mount it up high and still see what the camera's seeing, so you can position whatever it is that you've got underneath. So that was the second reason. And the third reason is, wherever it is, I can't find it, this has a port that allows you to plug a line into it, which means that you can basically have the output from your Force or from a mixer or whatever going straight into the camera, and you can record the audio in the camera. I don't use that very often. The times I use that is when I'm making one of those beat from scratch videos, which basically means filming for, I don't know, 8 or 10 hours, and then chopping up the footage into, basically condensing it into like a 10 or 15 minute video. Those videos don't have any talking over them, so you don't need to mess around balancing a commentary with the audio from the Force or the MPC or whatever. So the ability to plug the audio straight into the camera is a godsend. So if you are thinking about making top-down videos, something small and light is going to be very beneficial to you, as is the pop-up screen. Oh, it's turned itself on. So you can basically see where your positioning is, even if the camera is up high somewhere. So that's the only reason I decided to buy a camera over using a phone. There was no other quality associated reasons with it. It was purely so that it made life a lot easier for shooting the top-down videos. And as I say, I wouldn't have spent the money on this if my YouTube channel hadn't started generating a little bit of money. It kind of makes more sense, I suppose, because you feel like you're not spending or wasting money, because it's actually going back into the channel. So in a nutshell, if you've got a half-decent phone, all you need to do is buy yourself some sort of adapter and some sort of class-compliant interface, and you're good to go. If you want to buy a camera, it will behoove you to buy something which is small, has a pop-out screen, and has the capacity to record audio from a line-in source. So that's the sort of the camera bit, which is the bit that I think that most people will focus on, but it's actually the least important bit of the process. So what we're going to do now is have a look at lighting, camera positioning, and just basically the more important things that actually help you make a good video, and the way you capture audio being one of the most important. Okay, we're going to have a quick look at camera mounting or camera positioning, and ways to sort of do that depending on what you're trying to achieve. This is a little glimpse into my studio area of what is actually a living room, that no one has asked to see, but you're going to see it anyway. So this is the bit or the corner of my room where I do sort of mixing and actual making of music and all that stuff. But I actually do the filming over here, and after trial and error, I had to basically split those two activities into two different workspaces purely because of mounting the camera. So the one thing I learned, this is the same whether you're making top-down videos or whether you're making videos from the side, it doesn't matter what type of video you're making, you have to decouple your camera from the surface that your musical devices are based or sitting on. Because I found that even the slightest bit of vibration when you hit the pads or the keys translates through the camera to this really horrible kind of shaking. So you need to, as I say, decouple your camera from the desk that your gear is sitting on. Now, if you're going to make top-down videos, this is a pain in the backside, basically, because you can't use one of those cheap Amazon tripods with an extender because they sit on the desk. So you need something that will be completely removed from the desk. So I've got this boom arm here, and as you can see, it goes all the way down. So it's a big tripod at the bottom, kind of a pillar in the middle, and then a boom arm, which on this bit, this is where the camera attaches. Hopefully that will focus. And then at the other end, we have a counterweight, which I use a bottle of Crystal Head vodka. I must say that the vodka went a long time ago. That's just water in there. So you need something like that if you want to do good quality, stable, top-down videos. If you're not fussed about making top-down videos, if you're not going to be doing tutorials and you just want to make performance videos, a tripod like this is an absolute must, I think. This was the cheapest tripod I could find on eBay. It was about 10 quid. It's complete junk. A professional would never be seen dead with it, but it does the job of holding the camera steady when you're not touching it. If you're trying to do pan and tilt stuff with it, it's garbage. But if you're just going to set and forget, something like this makes life so much easier. The thing that you're going to want is something with a pan and tilt head like this, because it basically means you can position, hang on, you can position the tripod where you want, and then you can tilt the head of it in to get like a nice angle where people can see what you're doing on the pads or on the keys or the screen. And then on top of it here, I'm just going to try to do this with one hand. Is that possible? Can I do it? Yes. This is basically just an iPhone holder. This was like 4 quid off of eBay, and it's spring mounted, so you can basically attach your phone to the top of the tripod and then set it and forget it. So something like that, if you're filming with a phone, it will also work with a camera as well, obviously. Doesn't need to be expensive, just something that will sit still. So that, as I say, that whole rig there, the camera and the iPhone mount, was about 25 quid in total. The boom arm was a bit more expensive. I think I paid £60 for that. They are quite expensive if you buy them from Amazon, but if you buy them from eBay and you don't mind waiting a little while for it to come from China, you can get them about half the price normally. It's actually quite stable, and it's badged as being a lighting boom arm. But if you have a look at the front here, it's basically just got a tripod mount on it, so you can stick a camera or microphones or anything you want on there. So if you want to do stable top-down videos, you basically need a boom arm like this. If you want to do from the side kind of performance videos, you're going to want some sort of tripod. Whatever your solution is, the main thing to remember is it needs to be decoupled or not attached to the surface that your equipment is mounted on. Otherwise, you'll get wobbles every single time you press a key or basically touch your gear in any way, shape or form. The next tip is just for people who want to make tutorials. if you're going to be showing people how to do something on a force or an MPC, whatever it might be, you basically need to be able to capture the sound coming out of the thing you're teaching about, but also your voice as well. So you're going to be using a microphone. So in this scenario, when I'm doing a tutorial, I have the output of the force coming into one of the channels on this Zoom. This is a, what's it called, an L8 mixer. And then I plug another a microphone into it, and I record everything to the SD card recorder on the Zoom L8. Because when you're making the video, you're going to want to combine the sound of the force or the thing you're teaching about and your vocals. And you need to be able to process them differently, because you want, in that scenario, the voice or your commentary or the things you're saying to be very easy to understand and hear, which means you're going to want to process or do some processing on your vocals, and also be able to balance the volume so you can turn it up and down, you can duck the sound coming from the force from your voice, which is much easier to do if you capture it on 2 channels. If you're just doing performances and you're not doing any vocals, you don't need to worry about that. On the force, I just capture everything into the forces arranger, or you could record it into any sort of hard disk recorder if you wanted to, or straight into a computer. But the point being, if you want to make tutorials, you need some sort of solution like this, which will allow you to capture your commentary or your spoken instructions and the sound coming out of the force or the device you're teaching on 2 separate channels, so that you can process them individually. On to lighting, which I found to be the most important thing, basically. If your video is not well lit, it will look rubbish. It doesn't matter what you film it on. You could have some incredibly flash DSLR, but if the lighting's bad, it will not look good. It will look grainy, because the camera will struggle to record the video without putting artifacts and noise into it. Natural light is by far the best solution, but that's obviously not always possible, especially if you have a day job when you have to do this kind of thing at night. Natural light might not be available, but even if it is available, you're going to want some extra lights as well, for a reason that is more severe on the force than it is on other devices. Because the force has got so many pads, when you film it, I'm just going to switch this on, the pads are so bright, as you can see in this video. It basically makes the camera really struggle to capture the whole scene in a balanced way. So when you've got the force on and all of the lights, all of the pads are full up with clips and stuff, it's a very bright kind of thing for the camera to try and capture. So you need some fill-in lights as well, which basically illuminates the surface around your force, and it basically evens the light level across the whole thing, which makes the camera find it much easier to film the whole thing. And again, you probably don't want to spend a lot of money, so I bought a couple of these ring lights with their fetching pink stands. There's another one. This is what they look like. They've got like a telescopic stand. They were £20 for 2, and they work perfectly fine, and they've got different light types you can have. There's one which is bright white, there's another one which is slightly warmer, which is what this one is using now. The other lighting thing which I found to be invaluable was this little rechargeable video light. It was about 10 quid off of Amazon, and it's battery powered. And the thing that is so good about that is it doesn't need to be plugged in, so you can basically place it anywhere. So when you're filming, if there's a bit of a dark spot, or if your camera is struggling to capture the force because it's too dark, you can put this thing down and just fill any gaps that the lighting is struggling to pick up. Again, about 10 quid. So I found that those 2 ring lights that I bought for 20 quid and this little video light here have been all I need, and I can actually film, it can be night outside and I can still get half decent kind of footage without having to worry about waiting for daylight, basically, which makes things a lot more flexible. So lighting in a nutshell, daylight is by far the best, but even if you do film in daylight, you're probably going to want at least one fill-in light of some description, whether it's a cheap ring light or a cheap battery-powered video light. You should be able to find something that costs no more than $10 or $15 or pounds. I don't know why I'm saying dollars, I'm in England. But if you do spend that money and you just take a little bit of time with your positioning, it's the biggest thing you can do to make your videos look good and professional. Because whatever you're filming in, whatever camera you're using, whether it's a phone or posh DSLR, having enough light makes it much easier for the camera to capture the scene without introducing noise and artifacts. So it's really worth picking yourself up a couple of lights if you can possibly afford to do so. Okay, the last bit of the process, once you've recorded everything, is obviously to edit your video. And I am not qualified to do a big detailed video on that. There are thousands of videos by people who know what they're talking about, who can explain this process much better than me. But the one thing I will show you is how to sync the audio and video up if you've recorded them separately. Now, obviously, if you've plugged your Force or your mixer into the camera, you don't need to worry about this because the audio and the video will be together in the same file. This is only if you've recorded your video on a camera and the audio either on an SD card recorder, or you've put it straight into the arranger on the Force as well. So this is Premiere Pro, which is the video editor I use. There are lots of different options. Some are free, some are paid for, but they will all have this basic kind of layout or functionality. So you have a bin over here, which is where all of your assets are. And then you have a timeline down here, which is the equivalent of the arranger in the Force. It's like the linear timeline. So when you start out, you basically drag your first asset onto the timeline, which you want to be video in this case. So you'll see here, if I scrub through, this is a performance video I recorded a while ago. And it's the playhead moves from left to right, just as you would expect. So what we want to do is, this green file here is the recording, which I recorded into the arranger on the Force. So what we need to do is have these two things in sync, and it's actually quite simple. This kind of dial at the bottom of the screen essentially zooms in and out. So the further you're zoomed in, the more granular this display will be. So what we're going to do is scrub through the footage until we get to the point where the performance starts. So if you watch this bit up here, specifically the screen, you'll see that we scrub along. Now you can see that I've just pressed launch now, so I've launched the first scene. But if we look up here, because I'm recording, it's giving us a count-in. So we're just going to let that flash for a while. And then when the count-in's ended, you'll see a change in the clips. And see right here, the clips change colour, they go a solid colour, and the top row stops flashing. This is the point when the music has started playing. So all we do is we zoom in as far as we can. We move the playhead to this point here where the clip started playing, and then we simply drag our audio down into the timeline and we put the beginning of the audio at the same point. And now the audio and the video will be perfectly synced. I can't show you that in action because OBS, which is the software I'm using to capture this screen recording, will not work at the same time as audio as Premiere Pro. I don't know why, but trust me, it works. You've seen a bunch of my videos, so you've seen that they're in sync. This is how you do it. Now, obviously, if you were to import a video where you've recorded the audio straight into the camera, then you won't need to do this. When you drag the file into the timeline, it will have both the audio and the video in the same place. Then you basically can just edit the start and end point, and you can do any of your video editing and sort of add your captions or your credits or your opening scenes, whatever you want to do. And I suggest that other video makers are much more qualified than me to teach you how to do that. Just search for Premiere Pro or video editing, and you'll find a stack of videos. So those are my tips for recording performance and tutorial videos. It's pretty simple, really, distilled down into a couple of points. The first is the camera isn't particularly important. Doesn't matter if you're using a Swish camera or a mobile phone. But lighting and the way you mount your camera so that it's decoupled or detached from your playing surface so that you don't get vibration and shake, those two things are quite important, I think. Aside from that, just get stuck in, especially from an Akai Force perspective. The more videos we've got on YouTube of people using the Force and seeing how good it is, the more people will buy the Force, which means Akai will sell more of them, which means they're more likely to keep developing it and maybe even make a Force Mark II at some point. Who knows? But anyway, I hope that was useful. If you've got any questions, if I didn't cover anything properly, just put them in the comments. As ever, thanks very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing the videos you make on your Akai Force. Cheers, bye.